Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're gathered today on the fourth day of the first month on our Creator's calendar, which happens to coincide with March 15th, 2025, on the Gregorian calendar as we comprehend things. And this year was also the sign of the moon, or the great sign that the moon makes in its conjunction every third year of a full moon on the first of the year. We've also seen it 2019, or I'm sorry, 2021. No, no, no. Yeah, 2019, 2016, and 2013. Although I'm only aware of Brother Jerry Morris, Scott Whitman, and possibly Carrie Alexander knowing about the one in 2013. I personally seen the one in 2016, and others in our fellowship here have observed the ones that came later on as well. So there's some great information that's coming out about the legitimacy of the calendar with how things work with the moon phases and the Kohanim's order that's in scripture and shown in great detail in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So we'll put those videos in the link for everybody here because I think that they're very important. And because it's the beginning of the year, it's something worth studying out. But we're currently reading through Yobelim, and we have gone through the separation of our forefather Abraham and Sarah, or Abram and Sarai, his wife, from their families, from the idolatry of Ur of the Kasdim in Babylon. They left. He's now sojourned in the land there. He's been helped and he's been tried in a variety of ways, including even of having to offer up his son. We've seen how these things were alluded to in secular history, how there's mirrors of it, or there's other types and pictures. But the intent here was that Abram and later Abraham was found trustworthy to Elohim, obedient to his will as he was given it. Excuse me. And remember, he prayed to be delivered from evil spirits that were leading him astray, and he was given the words of his forefathers, and he copied them and studied them. So this is when Sarah died in Hebron. This is in the first year of the first week in the 42nd Yobel. Abraham returned and dwelt opposite Hebron, that is Kirjath Arba, and Kirjath means new city, like Carthage is Kirjath. It was the new city, right? That Kirjath is named for a city in the Hebrew. There's a few of them that have that. And he says that is Kirjath Arba, 2 weeks of years. And in the first year of the third week of this Yobel, the days of the life of Sarah were accomplished, and she died in Hebron. And Abraham went to mourn over her and bury her, and we tried him to see if his ruach were patient, and he were not indignant in the words of his mouth, and he was found patient in this, and was not disturbed. So you see, everything that happened was to see whether or not he would be patient in his dealings with others, even in his afflictions. It was about his character, regardless of the circumstances. And these are the trials that he was found to be trustworthy in to our Creator, right? For in patience of Ruach he conversed with the children of Heth to the intent that they should give him a place in which to bury his dead. And Yahuwah gave him free unmerited favor before all who saw him, and he besought in gentleness the sons of Heth, and they gave him the land of the double cave, or Machpelah, over against Mamre, that is Hebron, for 400 pieces of silver. And they besought him, saying, We shall give it to you for nothing. But he would not take it from their hands for nothing, for he gave the price of the place, the money in full, and he bowed down before them twice. And after this he buried his dead in the double cave. And all the days of the life of Sarah were 127 years. So that is the same amount of years as in the book of Jasher there. But the content is not the same. We were talking about that before we started recording. It says, and all the days of the life of Sarai were, or Sarah rather, were 127 years. That is 2 Yobelim and 4 weeks and 1 year. These are the days of the years of the life of Sarah. This is the 10th trial wherewith Abraham was tried, and he was found trustworthy, patient in Ruach. And he said not a single word regarding the rumor in the land, how that Yahuwah had said to that he would give it to him and to his seed after him, and he begged a place there to bury his dead. For he was found trustworthy, and was recorded on the Shamaim tablets as the friend of Yahuwah, or the friend of Elohim. So it was known in the land that he was going to be the possessor of it. That rumor had been out. And if you guys know about what they say, the rumor has force of prophecy on occasion. There's significance to it, just like the fear of the children was put over all the inhabitants of Canaan, and Rahab knew that they were going to be taken out. The people knew that they were there unlawfully and it wasn't going to be theirs. But he did not use that in anger against the inhabitants there. He didn't mistreat them. He didn't act like it was his by any means. And he still bought it at full price by people who had possession of it because that was the right thing to do, right? It's the image and the likeness of our Creator, just like our Mashiach when he walked the earth, how he would behave. And in the 4th year thereof, he took a wife for his son Yitzhak, and her name was Ribka or Rebecca, 2020 Anamundi, the daughter of Bethuel, which is the house of El with a wall there, the son of Nahor, the brother of Abraham, the sister of Laban, and daughter of Bethuel. And Bethuel was the son of Milcah, who was the wife of Nahor, the brother of Abraham. And Abraham took to himself a third wife, and her name was Keturah, from among the daughters of his household servants, for Hagar had died before Sarah. And remember, Hagar is a type of the first covenant in Mount Sinai of Arabia, died before Sarah, which was like the promised one, or the Yerushalayim, which is above. But the ones that came after are from Keturah, and it was of the daughters of the household. All of these things are a type of foretelling of things to come, and this would be mostly of the types of religions or falsehoods that came afterwards, if you will. All of these men, if I remember correctly, Josephus mentions um, that they became what they call the troglodytes, or the cave dwellers of the desert. It says, and she bare him 6 sons, Zimram and Yokshan and Medan and Midian and Ishbak and Shua in the 2 weeks of years. And in the 6th week, in the 2nd year thereof, Rebekah bare to Yitzhak 2 sons, Jacob and Esau, and this is 20:46 a.m. And Jacob was a smooth and upright man, and Esau was fierce, a man of the field, and hairy. And Jacob dwelt in tents. And the youths grew, and Jacob learned to write, but Esau did not learn, for he was a man of the field and a hunter, and he learned war, and all his deeds were fierce. Now, this passage is one of a few that's actually used by Martin Luther, the Reformer, to refute astrology. And it was something that was very prevalent during the Dark Ages. Witchcraft was always used by Satan and those that follow him, but it was a practice that he was rebuking and proving through scripture that it doesn't matter if you're born on one date or another. It's your intentions and what you choose to do that dictate what kind of spirit is in you and not how the stars are aligned at your birth, because they shared a womb. They're born at the exact same time, and you can see that they're quite different. It says, and Abraham loved Jacob, but Yitzhak loved Esau. And Abraham saw the deeds of Esau, the actions, and he knew that in Jacob should his name and seed be called. Because he was cognizant of the foretellings, he was aware of his own character and the truth that was being revealed, and he could discern what was happening. And he called Rebekah and gave commandment regarding Jacob, for he knew that she too loved Jacob much more than Esau. And he said to her, my daughter, watch over my son Jacob, for he shall be in my stead on the earth, and for a barakah in the midst of the children of men, and for the splendor of the whole seed of Shem. For I know that Yahuwah will choose him to be a people for possession unto himself above all peoples that are upon the face of the earth. If you remember, he was given directly that he would be his Elohim and the Elohim of his seed, meaning Yitzhak, and of his son, only singular, and of all of his children, all the seed of Yaakov. So he saw that in Yaakov, all of his children would be the seed of our Maker, as promised to him, just like he was seeing the promises already given partially fulfilled. And this is the same way that we can see things in history and foretelling. When we see things partially fulfilled or the things coming about that he had spoken of, we can know that it's true. Just as Daniel was given the visions of what would happen, he did not live to see all of it, but he lived to see some of it fulfilled and consequently knew it to be true. All right, so it says, and behold, Yitzhak my son loves Esau more than Jacob. But I see that you truly love Jacob, and add still further to your loving kindness to him, and let your eyes be upon him in love. For he shall be a barakah, or blessing unto us on the earth from henceforth unto all generations of the earth. Let your hands be strong, and let your heart rejoice in your son Jacob. For I have loved him far beyond all my sons. He shall be Baruch forever, and his seed shall fill the whole earth. Now, this, we're not supposed to show partiality or love our children one more than the other. It's not something that is supposed to be spoken out loud to engender feelings of, amiability, right? Remember, it was Yahusuf showing the dreams and things of his exaltation that brought the ire, envy, and retribution of his brothers against him. So this isn't written for everybody. This is written so the truth can be known, and it's the fact that it was what was given that he's seen being fulfilled, and because of that, he loves him. But here's the key. We'll see later on the heart, the mind, the intent behind Jacob, how he actually is from his own witness. It's never rebuked, never corrected. It's what stands in this writing as the way that he is, that is the reason why these things are happening. It's the disposition of him that made him the perfect man that we just read about, or the upright man. Okay. It says, let your hands be strong and let your heart rejoice in your son Yaakov, for I have loved him far beyond all my sons. He shall be Baruch forever, and his seed shall fill the whole earth. If a man can number the sand of the earth, his seed also shall be numbered. Another witness that we shouldn't be numbering ourselves, like as it's witnessed in Kings and Chronicles in the book of Gad the seer, when the people were doing evil, Satan was allowed to entice Dawid to number the people, even when he was being cautioned not to by Yahuab. He went and did it anyways, so that a plague could go through because it was unlawful. That's the same thing with the yearly census and people getting sick and for what they're doing too. And for anyone that's familiar, you can religiously exempt from giving out everybody in your household. You can just tell the males that are over 20. It says, in all the Baraka wherewith Yahuwah has Baruch me and my seed shall belong to Jacob and his seed always. And in his seed shall my name be Baruch, and the name of my fathers, Shem, and Noach, and Hanok, and Mahalalel, and Enosh, and Seth, and Adam. And these shall serve to lay the foundations of the Shamayim, and to strengthen the earth, and to renew all the luminaries which are in the firmament. And he called Jacob before the eyes of Rebekah his mother, and kissed him, and Baruch him, and said, Jacob, my beloved son, whom my inner being loves, may Yahuwah barak you above the firmament, and may he give you all the birakoth, or blessings wherewith he blessed Adam, and Chanok, and Noach, and Shem, and all the things of which he told me, and all the things which he promised to give me. May he cause to cleave to you and to your seed forever, according to the days of Shamayim above the earth. And the Ruachoth, or the spirits of Mastema, shall not rule over you or over your seed to turn you from Yahuwah, who is your Elohim from henceforth forever. And may Yahuwah Elohim be a father to you, and you the firstborn son, and to the people always. Go in shalom, my son. And they both went forth together from Abraham, and Rebekah, or Ribkah, loved Jacob with all her heart and with all her inner being, very much more than Esau. But Yitzhak loved Esau much more than Jacob. And we don't get the nuances for why this is. I don't want to speculate on things that are not written. We should only go by that, right? But everything that is here is for foretelling purposes. Okay, everything that happened is a parable of things for future events. Esau being loved and favored and being blessed in these times is something that is a phenomenon that might seem odd and contradictory because of their nature, but nevertheless it happened. And that very phenomenon, if you are familiar with who Edom or Esau represents in parable form, the fact that they've been favored, exalted, and lifted high like an eagle, and yet they're doing these evils and persecuting their brother and all that. It it seems odd, but the foretellings are there to show us that these things are so by his purview and power. And it was even foretold in Rome being given the watch during the night, where we've covered that in the book of Tatafi. Um, we read that together in a fellowship not too long ago about how Rome is the fourth beast from Daniel. but we'll go ahead and continue here. Yobelim chapter 20. Abraham called all his sons and commanded them to observe the way of Yahuwah. And this right here is an echo of what we had already seen from Noah doing that very thing with his children. This is an emulation that all righteous men should do with their children, whether they hear or whether they will not. It's not, we can't force our children to obey his word, but we can enjoin them to do the things that are true. Right, it says, and in the 42nd Yobel, in the first year of the seventh week, Abraham called Yishmael, and this is, it says either 2052 or 2045 AM. I don't know why they have two dates there. I'd have to look at what they had to say about that. It says, and he says he called Yishmael and his 12 sons, and Yitzhak and his two sons, and the six sons of Keturah, and their sons. And he commanded them that they should observe the way of Yahuwah, that they should work righteousness and love each his neighbor, and act on this manner amongst all men, that they should each so walk with regard to them as to do just judgment, or righteous right ruling, and righteousness on the earth, that they should circumcise their sons according to the covenant which he had made with them, and not deviate to the right hand or the left of all the paths which Yahuwah had commanded us, and that we should keep ourselves from all fornication and uncleanness, and renounce from amongst us all fornication and uncleanness. So not only to keep yourselves from it, but to renounce from amongst us all of it. And that renunciation and abstaining is still a requirement for us today. If you read the apostolic constitutions, for anyone that wants to be immersed in his name and become a new covenant believer, they're required to renounce all the pomps and ways of Satan and to take on all the ways of Yahuwah. It says, and if any woman or maid commit fornication amongst you, burn her with fire, and let them not commit fornication with her after their eyes and their heart. That is not something that you see in what we call the Bible. The injunction to burn a harlot with fire is right here. And then you can see it was played out. They tried to enact it in the times of Genesis with Yahudah and Tamar. When he was told that she was playing the harlot, he said, come and let's go burn her, because that was the law. And that's also the end result of what's going to happen with the mother of harlots, who is going to be burned with fire. That's what it was fully culminating in. But it says, and let them not take to themselves wives from the daughters of Canaan, for the seed of Canaan will be rooted out of the land, because they took the land and broke the oath unlawfully. They were all under the ban. And he told them of the judgment of the giants, and the judgment of the Sodomites, how they had been judged on account of their wickedness, and had died on account of their fornication. So you see, he told of the judgment of the giants, the judgment that Noah himself lived through and enjoined his children on, and the judgment of the Sodomites, which he himself witnessed firsthand and was able to speak from experience as an echo of that very thing, of living through a judgment and then exhorting your children. So, and how they had been judged on account of their wickedness and had died on account of their fornication. Fornication is intercourse out of marriage, right? And uncleanness and mutual corruption through fornication, right? Adultery is fornication with someone who is married, but fornication is not, right? It's otherwise. And guard yourselves from all fornication and uncleanness, and from all pollution of sin, lest you make our name a curse, and your whole life a hissing, and all your sons to be destroyed by the sword. And you become accursed like Sodom, and all your remnant as the sons of Gomorrah. I implore you, my sons, love Yahuwah of Shamayim, and cleave you to all his commandments, and walk not after their idols, and after their uncleannesses, and make not for yourselves molten or graven mighty ones. Now, this goes exactly in line with what I was just mentioning, that the intent behind this deliverance from evil spirits is to have the character or the likeness of our Creator, of which we were all given his image, but we had failed to keep his likeness because of idolatry. We had covered that a few weeks ago. The introduction of idols is what allowed men to worship something other than the true Elohim, to which they were no longer afraid of the future judgment or any correction from a statue. And that's what led them to doing all these things that were evil and contrary to what follows the golden rule. So getting back to obedience to the truth gets back to truly loving others and not doing evil towards anyone, right? And walk not after their idols and after their uncleannesses, and make not for yourselves molten or graven mighty ones, for they are vanity, and there is no spirit in them, for they are the work of men's hands, and all who trust in them trust in nothing. Serve them not, worship them not, or nor worship them. But serve you the Most High Yahuwah, and worship him continually, and hope for his continuance always, or countenance always, rather. And work uprightness and righteousness before him, that he may have pleasure in you, and grant you his mercy, and send rain upon you morning and evening, and barak all the works which you have wrought upon the earth. Do you want to be successful in what you do? There's a way to get it. This is reiterated in Deuteronomy, it's reiterated in Leviticus, it's reiterated when he's giving his covenant that if we are obedient to his will, we'll be prosperous in the things we put our hand to. If we keep his Torah before our minds and mutter it and keep it in our mouth and heart continually, we will be intelligent and wise in everything that we do, and it will prosper. That is a promise in his word that cannot lie. So he says, and send rain upon you morning and evening, and barak all the works which you have wrought upon the earth, and barak your bread and your water, and barak the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land, and the herds of your cattle, and the flocks of your sheep. And you will be for a baraka on the earth, and all nations of the earth will desire you, and barak your sons in my name, that they may be Baruch as I am. And he gave to Ishmael and to his sons and to the sons of Keturah gifts, and sent them away from Yitzhak his son. And he gave everything to Yitzhak his son. And Ishmael and his sons and the sons of Keturah and their sons went together and dwelt from Paran to the entering in of Babylon in all the land which is towards the east, facing the desert. And these mingled with each other, and their name was called Arabs and Yishmaelites, or Yishmaelim. Yishmaelim because of their sons of Yishmael, and Arabs, Arab is literally evening, but it means mixture, right? And to be perfectly clear, they were mixed Semites and Hamites. They kept marrying the daughters of Egypt, and that's why they're a little bit dark complexion, if you want to there. But Yobelim chapter 21 says, Abraham, called Yitzhak his son, and instructs and blesses him. And in the 6th year of the 7th week of this Yobel, Abraham called Yitzhak his son, and commanded him, saying, I am become old, and know not the day of my death, and am full of my days. And behold, I am 175 years old, and throughout all the days of my life I have remembered Yahuwah, and sought with all my heart to do his will, and to walk uprightly in all his ways. My inner being has hated idols, and I have given my heart and ruach that I might observe to do the will of him who created me. For he is the living Yahuwah, or he is the living one who causes it to be. And he is kadosh and trustworthy, and he is righteous beyond all, and there is with him no accepting of persons, and no accepting of gifts. For Yahuwah is righteous and executes judgment on all those who transgress his commandments and despise his covenant. And do you, my son, observe his commandments and his ordinances and his judgments, and walk not after the abominations, and after the graven images, and after the molten images. So these are things that we're commanded not to walk after. The molten images, the graven images, and the molten ones are the ones that are molded out of metals or whatever things that they have poured in to make a mold, right? They have graven images are the ones that are carved. And you have the abominations. Those would be the religious practices, the rites and ceremonies that were instituted for their false worships that these go along with. That would be what became the Ishtar celebration, the Christ Mass, or the birth of Nimrod, the veneration of that. These are those solemnitudes or rites that he calls here the abominations. And it is later on called the abomination that desolates in the book of Revelation, when it is the Christ Mass being spoken of that was instituted by Sixtus the Third. So these are just the same things, though. There are these solemnitudes or rites of pagan idolatry that lead to the very things that he hates, or that our forefather hated and that our creator hates, because it separates us from the truth. And as you read, it causes men to think it's permissible to do evil. It says, and eat no blood at all of animals or cattle, or of any bird which flies in the Shamayim. And if you do slay a victim as an acceptable shalom offering, slay you it, and pour out its blood upon the altar. And all the fat of the offering offer on the altar with fine flour, and the meat offering mingled with oil, and its drink offering. Offer them all together on the altar of burnt offering. It is a sweet savor before Yahuwah. And you will offer the fat of the sacrifice of thank offerings on the fire which is upon the altar, and the fat which is on the belly, and all the fat on the innards of the two kidneys, and all the fat that is upon them, and upon the loins, and the liver you shall remove together with the kidneys, and offer all these for a sweet savor, acceptable before Yahuwah, with its meat offering and with its drink offering, for a sweet savor, the bread of the offering unto Yahuwah. Now, I can't tell you about the fat that is upon the loins. I don't know about that. I would have to look into it more. But the belly fat, the fat on the inners and the liver and the two kidneys, all of that fat is where your body will store toxins that it can't filter out quick enough or it can't deal with those organs. It stores it in fat to put it out of the way to deal with when it's not overloaded or otherwise is capable of, if ever. But that's where you start building up fat on those areas if you are taking in a lot of things that are toxic, maybe. And that's why it's a good idea not to eat that on an animal because that's where that stuff is stored for them. It was offered on the altar here, and it was probably a way that his people stayed very healthy as opposed to others that might not have that distinction. You can look, there's plenty of evidence, and there's a lot of evidence, especially with Seventh Day Adventists, about their cleanliness, their dietary observances in obedience to the truth as they comprehend it, and the health benefits you can get from it. It's not just them, but there's others examples as well. I wouldn't go outside of anything that is written, but you can definitely stay within the realms of his word and find that it is true and for your benefit. It says, and eat its meat on that day and on the second day. So this is about how you can kill an animal and eat the meat for 2 days. And let not the sun on the second day go down upon it till it is eaten. And let nothing be left over for the third day, for it is not acceptable. And let it no longer be eaten. And all who eat thereof will bring sin upon themselves. For thus I have written, or sorry, for thus I have found it written in the books of my forefathers and in the words of Hanok and in the words of Noach. So it doesn't make a distinction saying, well, in the future you might have refrigeration or whatever, but um, it's something to keep in mind. I don't know about how this would be legitimate if you freeze meat. I don't know about what you should do in regard to that, or if you cool it for any extended periods. That's something that it's a condition we live with. We've had it for generations. It's just part of our culture. But it's something here that is directly contrary to it's plainly written. But I will make a cravat. They did not have refrigeration at that time. It says, and on all your oblations you shall strew salt, and let not the salt of the covenant be lacking in all your oblations before Yahuwah. Um, there was also, I'm reminded here, there's also in the Torah the injunctions of not leaving your wine for more than a year or your seed of any kind, not storing it up and keeping it for grain to build wealth or anything, but to use it within that year and then its dross are not acceptable anymore. He did this to teach his children not to hoard things or to be greedy, to share with what they had, the abundance of what they're given, because that's the point. And it's not something necessarily that we do outside of the land and the world today in any measure that I'm familiar with. But that was the intent as it's stated in the scriptures here. Verse 12, and it says, and as regards the wood of the sacrifices, beware lest you bring other wood for the altar in addition to these cypress, bay, almond, fir, pine, cedar, savin, fig, olive, myrrh, laurel, and asclepias, which I have no idea what this one is, or the savin really, but these are the different types of trees. It's expounded on, I believe, in the Dead Sea Scrolls version of the book of Yobelim. Uh, yeah, and it mentions right here as well, but these ones have the fragrance goes up to the Shamayim. And when you burn this wood, you see the smoke directly rises. Other wood that you burn, the smoke does not go directly up. It kind of disperses across the area, and those are not the ones that are acceptable for an offering to be lifted up to the Shamayim where he dwells. It says, and of these kinds of wood lay upon the altar under the sacrifice, such as have been tested as to their appearance. And do not lay any split or dark wood, hard and clean, or sorry, but hard and clean without fault, a sound and new growth. And do not lay old wood, for there is no longer fragrance in it as before. Besides these kinds of wood, there is none other that you should place, for the fragrance is dispersed, and the smell of its fragrance goes not up to Shamayim. Observe this commandment and do it, my son, that you may be upright in all your deeds. And at all times be clean in your body, and wash yourself with water before you approach to offer on the altar. And wash your hands and your feet before you draw near to the altar. And when you are done sacrificing, wash again your hands and your feet. And let no blood appear upon you nor upon your clothes. Be on your guard, my son, against blood. Be on your guard exceedingly. Cover it with dust. And do not eat any blood, for it is the soul. You see, this is what I was trying to tell you. Most translations in the what we call the Bible will say the life is in the blood, but when you look at that word in the Hebrew, that word is not the word for life, which is chai, where we get the English word hi today, like hi, how you doing? That's life, but it's the word for nefesh, and that word is the soul or the inner being. The inner being of everyone is in the blood, and the blood permeates every part of your body. It goes everywhere like the soul does. It permeates through the whole body like oxygen, right? So it's actually in the blood. You can see it's the things that epigenetics look at that talks to the DNA that changes stuff, right? Kind of where we're going at with that, but that's in the blood, and that's not supposed to be eaten by anyone, but poured out. Eat no blood whatever. And take no gifts for the blood of man, lest it be shed with impunity, without judgment. For it is the blood that is shed that causes the earth to sin. And the earth cannot be cleansed from the blood of man, save by the blood of him who shed it. And take no present or gift for the blood of man, blood for blood, that you may be accepted before the Almighty, the Most High Yahuwah. For he is the defense of the good, and that you may be preserved from all evil, and that he may save you from every kind of death. I see, my son, that all the works of the children of men are sin and wickedness, and all their deeds are uncleanness and an abomination and a pollution, and there is no righteousness with them. Beware lest you should walk in their ways and tread in their paths, and sin a sin unto death before the Most High Yahuwah. Else he will hide his face from you and give you back into the hands of your transgression, and root you out of the land, and your seed likewise from under Shamayim. And your name and your seed shall perish from the whole earth. Turn away from all the deeds and all their uncleanness, and observe the ordinance of the Most High Yahuwah, and do his will, and be upright in all things. And he will barak you in all your deeds, and will raise up from you a plant of righteousness through all the earth, throughout all generations of the earth. And my name and your name shall not be forgotten under Shamayim forever. Go, my son, in shalom. May the Most High Yahuwah, my Elohim, and your Elohim strengthen you to do his will. If we had more prayers like that for our children, right? And may he barak all your seed and the residue of your seed from the generations forever. The residue is the remnant or what's left over. Okay. With all the righteous blessings that you may be a baraka on all the earth. And he went out from him rejoicing. Now Yobelim chapter 22. Remember, Yitzhak is the type of promised seed. He is the second of the three patriarchs where we have the parable where it says, the kingdom of the Shamayim is like a woman who hid leaven in three measures until all were leavened. If you remember what the leaven is, it's not sin. Many people like to attribute leaven to being sin and that you have to get rid of sin in your life during unleavened bread. But that's not the parable that scripture defines. That's just things that men say. If you look, you won't find anywhere in scripture of what leaven is spoken of unless you look at what our Mashiach says and the example or the explanation to his taught ones that leaven is doctrine. And while you are to remove the doctrines and other things that can ruin the lump and leaven it with wrong teachings and become the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth during the type of Pesach, when Shavuot comes around, it's the two leavened full loaves that are presented to the by the Kohen to the Almighty. And that represents the two houses fully leavened with his teachings and then indwelled with the Ruach at that time. And that parable was in the offerings of the festivals and enumerated or explained um, in the apostolic constitutions. But here we go. It says Yitzhak. So sorry, my whole point was Abraham is the first of those three. Yitzhak would be the second of those three, where his doctrines were with the people being leavened for a time. And then the third age or type of peoples was typified in Yaakov. Abraham, the pre-dwelling in the land sojournings of the children. Yitzhak, the type of the promised seed in the land. And then Yaakov, where he goes outside of the land to labor for his possessions before returning. Those are the three pictures in them of the three ages. So, ob willing, that's starting to become more clear. It says, and it came to pass in the first week in the 44th Yobel, in the second year, that is, the year in which Abraham died, that Yitzhak and Yishmael came from the well of the oath to celebrate the Feast of Weeks. That is the feast of the first fruits of the harvest to Abraham their father. And Abraham rejoiced because his two sons had come. Remember, I was just talking about the two loaves on that feast, and here's a type of that, right? Rejoicing that his two sons had come on that festival. For Yitzhak had many possessions in Beersheba, and Yitzhak was wont to go and see his possessions and to return to his father. And in those days Yishmael came to see his father, and they both came together, and Yitzhak offered a sacrifice for a burnt offering, and presented it on the altar of his father, which he had made in Hebron. And he offered a thank offering, and made a feast of joy before Ishmael his brother. And Rebekah made new cakes from the new grain, and gave them to Jacob her son, to take them to Abraham his father, from the first fruits of the land, that he might eat and barak the Creator of all things before he died. And Yitzhak too sent by the hand of Jacob to Abraham the best thank offering, that he might eat and drink. And he ate and drank, and Baruch the Most High Yahuwah, who has created the Shamayim and earth, and who has made all the fat things of the earth, and given them to the children of men, that they might eat and drink, and Barak their Creator. So to eat and drink and rejoice with the labors of your hands, for that is the portion of men in their lives. That's what Shlomo says in Ecclesiastes, if you recall, or Kohelet, the preacher. Kohelet, rather. It says, And now I give thanks unto you, my Elohim, because you have caused me to see this day. Behold, I am 175 years, an old man and full of days, and all my days have been unto me shalom. The sword of the adversary has not overcome me in all that you have given me, and my children all the days of my life until this day. My Elohim, may your mercy and your shalom be upon your servant, and upon the seed of his sons, that they may be to you a chosen nation, and an inheritance from amongst all the nations of the earth, from henceforth unto all the days of the generations of the earth, unto all the ages. And he called Jacob and said, My son Jacob, may Yahuwah, the Elohim of all, that could be the Elohim HaKol, the all, that title that we've seen used elsewhere for the Father. May he barak you and strengthen you to do righteousness and his will before him, and may he choose you and your seed, that you may become a people for his inheritance, according to his will always. And do you, my son Jacob, draw near and kiss me. And he drew near and kissed him, and he said, Baruch be my son Jacob, and all the sons of Yahuwah Most High, unto all the ages. May Yahuwah give unto you a seed of righteousness. And some of your sons may he set apart in the midst of the whole earth. May nations serve you, and all the nations bow themselves before your seed. Be strong in the presence of men, and exercise authority over all the seed of Seth. Exercise authority because of the sons of Seth, or the seed that was appointed, Shem was given preeminence. And of Shem, the line went to Abraham, and of his seed, Yitzhak and Jacob. So they are carrying down that firstborn premise that you would see from Adam over the sons of men that are alive today, which is why he gave this injunction. And it's why Yisrael as a nation was to be the head when they're in obedience and not the tail. But when they're walking contrary, they got otherwise. And those that would have been in subjection decided to be cruel rulers over them instead. It says, Then your ways and the ways of your sons will be declared right, so that they shall become a Kodesh nation. May the Most High Yahuwah give you all the Birakoth or blessings wherewith he has Baruch me, and wherewith he Baruch Noach and Adam. May they rest on the sacred head of your seed from generation to generation forever. And may he cleanse you from all unrighteousness and impurity, that you may be forgiven all the transgressions which you have committed ignorantly, and may he strengthen you and barak you. Now, a lot of people might look at that and think, well, any intentional sins and I'm done for. There's no forgiveness for that. But that's not what this means. Everything that you do that is evil is in ignorance. because you are ignorant, not nescient of the fact that it's going to be punished or corrected. So we do all our evils ignorantly when we don't have consequence of the future judgment that's in store for you. And that's the type that he'll forgive. This is something that you don't see so clearly, but our Creator will forgive everything that a man does. If you have breath in you, you have the opportunity to repent. What nobody has the opportunity to do is to escape the consequences of our inequity. We will be punished for it, either in this life or in the next, right? But that's the part of counting the cost, like he mentions, the building of the tower, and make sure that you have what it takes beforehand before you get started, so that you're not put to shame. He says, and may he strengthen you and barak you, and may you inherit the whole earth. And may he renew his covenant with you, that you may be to him a nation for his inheritance for all the ages, and that he may be to you and to your seed an Elohim in truth and righteousness throughout all the days of the earth. And do you, my son Jacob, remember my words, and observe the commandments of Abraham your father. Separate yourself from the nations, and eat not with them, and do not according to their works. Now, you don't eat with the nations of the pagans because they're partaking of the table of demons by eating of those things offered to their false mighty ones. They're not supposed to eat with them so that you don't partake. And also, can you partake of the table of demons and Elohim? That Shaul clearly tells you no. And it's explained elsewhere. It's gone over in detail in the recognitions why Kepha would not eat with Clement until he was immersed, and any unclean spirits were removed from him. It tells you plainly in the renewed covenant, you do mark anyone walking disorderly and do not keep company with them nor eat with them. And that walking disorderly is directly what the Puritans quoted about the satanical practices of Christmas or the Christ Mass of the time, where they said it was satanic and prohibited in America. It was brought in by Rome later on. It's part of the reason why we're under judgment from the Almighty right now, because we're doing according to their works. We have not separated ourselves, and we are now polluted. We must repent of that as a nation. It says they offer their sacrifices to the dead, and they worship evil spirits. And they eat over the graves, and all their works are vanity and nothingness. They have no heart to comprehend, and their eyes do not see what their works are, or how they err in saying to a piece of wood, you are my Elohim, and to a stone, you are my Elohim, and you are my deliverer. And they have no heart. And as for you, my son Jacob, may the we can see this even today. We don't have to go very far to see that the idolatry brings a lack of heart. Scripture calls it part of the spirit of Satan is to have a slackness in the search for righteousness, to have no heart for it, no inclination to do his will, right? And that's directly tied to idolatry, which is the common practice of most worship today. So it is, as for you, my son Jacob, may the Most High Yahuwah help you, and the Almighty of Shamayim barak you, and remove you from their uncleanness and from all their error. Be you ware, my son Jacob, of taking a wife from any seed of the daughters of Canaan, for all his seed is to be rooted out of the land. specifically the ones that were in the land that they swore they would not take. For owing to the transgression of Ham, Canaan erred. I want you to see that this is the condition that was echoed from Adam. You see it in Aharon and his children, but right here it directly tells you, for owing to the transgression of Ham, because he despised his father, he dishonored him, he exposed his nakedness to his brothers, Canaan erred, and all his seed shall be destroyed from off the earth, and all the residue thereof, and none springing from him shall be delivered on the day of judgment. And as for all the worshippers of idols and the profane, there shall be no hope for them in the land of the living, and there shall be no remembrance of them on the earth. For they shall descend into Sheol, and into the place of condemnation shall they go. That same place of condemnation where the evil spirits go until the day of judgment. And as the children of Sodom were taken away from the earth, so will all those who worship idols be taken away. Fear not, my son Jacob, and be not dismayed, son of Abraham. May the Most High Yahuwah preserve you from destruction, and from all the paths of error may he deliver you. This house have I built for myself, that I might put my name upon it in the earth. It is given to you and to your seed forever. And it will be named the house of Abraham. It is given to you and to your seed forever. For you will build my house and establish my name before Yahuwah forever. Your seed and your name will stand throughout all generations of the earth. And he ceased commanding him and baraking him. And the two lay together on one bed, and Jacob slept in the bosom of Abraham, his father's father, and he kissed him 7 times, which is like an oath, and his affection and his heart rejoiced over him. And he baruched him with all his heart, and said, The Most High Yahuwah, the Elohim of all, the Creator of all, who brought me forth from Ur of the Kasdim, that he might give me this land to inherit it forever, and that I might establish a Kodesh seed. Baruch be the Most High forever. And he baraked Jacob, and said, My son, over whom with all my heart and my affection I rejoice, may your free, unmerited favor and your mercy be lift up upon him and upon his seed always. And do not forsake him, nor set him at naught from henceforth unto the days of eternity. And may your eyes be opened upon him and upon his seed, that you may preserve him, and barak him, and may make him set apart as a nation for your inheritance. And barak him with all your birakoth or blessings from henceforth unto all the days of eternity. And renew your covenant and your free unmerited favor with him and with his seed according to all your tov pleasure unto all the generations of the earth. What an amazing thing for a father or a grandfather to pray over his grandchild, right? Especially when you know that your prayers will be heard by the Almighty who can actually make them happen. Now, I want to show you, this is one of the inversions that you can see, and this is one of the easier ones, where Jacob is in the bosom of Abraham, sleeping when Abraham dies. And we all, when we die, go to the bosom of Abraham. That's the inversion, but that is the name of the place of rest for the righteous and those that dwell in truth. Um, you can see that both in the renewed covenant writings with the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, as well as in Josephus's writings, um, not his main books. The Antiquities of the Yahudim or the War of the Yahudim are different, but this is on an essay that he had wrote. I believe it was to the Greeks about Hades or what happens after you die. And he distinctly mentions the bosom of Abraham as contradicted to the place of condemnation where the wicked and those that serve demons go to after death, where their immortal spirit, where their soul, if you will, continues after the body and doesn't die. But right here, chapter 23, Abraham died, and he placed two fingers of Jacob on his eyes, and he Baruch the Almighty, or the Elohim of Elohim, and he covered his face and stretched out his feet and slept the sleep of eternity, and was gathered to his fathers. And this was when he was at the happiest point of his life. There, I mean, what better could he have? He's seen the promises being fulfilled. He knew that in him his seed would continue, and he would have all those blessings. So he was literally in living the best that he could and taken before he had any more hardship, any more sadness, no problems in his life and in his sleep. This is the way that a man goes who pleases the Almighty. Okay. And notwithstanding all this, Jacob was lying in his bosom and knew not that Abraham, his father's father, was dead. And Jacob awoke from his sleep, and behold, Abraham was cold as ice. And he said, Father, Father, but there was none that spoke, and he knew that he was dead. And he arose from his bosom and ran and told Rebekah his mother. And Rebekah went to Yitzhak in the night and told him, and they went together, and Jacob with them, and a lamp was in his hand. And when they had gone in, they found Abraham lying dead. And Yitzhak fell on the face of his father and wept and kissed him. He touched his father's dead body, wept and kissed him, and he was not considered unclean. He did not have to wash or offer for anything. This was before those instructions were given because of the golden calf. That was some of the added bonds to teach men righteousness with physical examples that is no longer required. Okay, you can see the same thing when Moshe takes the bones of Yahusuf, or Yahusuf is laying on his father Yitzhak, or Yaakov rather. So it says, and the voices were heard in the house of Abraham, and Ishmael his son arose and went to Abraham his father and wept over Abraham his father, he and all the house of Abraham, and they wept with a great weeping. And his sons Yitzhak and Ishmael buried him in the double cave near Sarah his wife. And they wept for him 40 days, all the men of his house, and Yitzhak and Ishmael and all their sons, and all the sons of Keturah in their places. And the days of weeping for Abraham were ended. And he lived 3 Yobelim and 4 weeks of years, 175 years, and completed the days of his life, being old and full of days. For the days of the forefathers of their life were 19 Yobelim, so up over 900 years. And after the flood, they began to grow less than 19 Yobelim, and to decrease in Yobelim, and to grow old quickly, and to be full of their days by reason of manifold tribulation and the wickedness of their ways, with the exception of Abraham. So, manifold tribulation, all the problems that you have that are instigated by demons through our waywardness and the wickednesses that we do, or are acting the fool, if you will, because the fools have lessened life expectancy when you look at the scriptures and what they say about that, particularly in the Proverbs. But these shorten our life. And you can see even Abraham, who was perfect in his ways and his deeds, only lived to 175. That was less than the years of the life of his father, who was an idolater. But we don't see where his father anywhere killed a man, where Abraham did. And I don't mean that as a judgment against him. I'm not trying to say anything bad. I'm trying to point out facts. If we want to know with a reasonable mind why we have longer or less life or more life than others, you have to go back to what is written. I guarantee you, if you honor your parents, truly, according to the scripture, you will have an extended life than what you normally would. I have evidence of that in my life. I've seen my grandpa's 84 years old. He's well beyond the 70 or even the 80 for strength. He's beyond that, and he's been able to be alive. But he very much honored his parents when he was younger. He'd tell me stories about things all the time, and he's rather um, nonchalant about the things, but he would regularly send back a whole paycheck or something when he was in the service because he didn't need it, just because to help them out. And you don't see people doing that kind of stuff, but that is great honor to your parents, to which he's rewarded. And that thing is literally true for all of us who do likewise in this life. Conversely, if you do otherwise, you get otherwise. This is for, and that's the thing with Abraham. He's otherwise perfect, but he did draw the blood of men. And that's the only thing otherwise that he had done different from his father when he, even when he separated from idolatry, that could account for having less life than his father did. But for Abraham was perfect in all his deeds with Yahuwah and well pleasing in righteousness all the days of his life. And behold, he did not complete 4 Yobelim in his life, when he had grown old by reason of the wickedness and was full of his days. And all the generations which shall arise from this time until the day of great judgment shall grow old quickly, before they complete 2 Yobelim. So before 99 years, or before 100 years, if you will, 99. And their knowledge shall forsake them by reason of their old age, and all their knowledge shall vanish away. And in those days, if a man live a Yobeli, or a Yobel and a half of years, which is 75, they shall say regarding him, he has lived long, and the greater part of his days are pain and sorrow and tribulation, and there is no shalom. This is exactly what happens to many in this time, right? We grow old early by 75. We've considered that the majority is past, and you don't have much comfort in your future but to look forward to your everlasting rest. It says, for calamity follows on calamity, and wound on wound, and tribulation on tribulation, and evil tidings on evil tidings, and illness on illness, and all evil judgments such as these, one with another, illness and overthrow, and snow and frost, and ice and fever, and chills and stupor, and famine, and death, and sword, and captivity, and all kinds of calamities and pains. This is also gone over in the recognitions of Clement. It's gone over in detail in the Shepherd of Hermas for what is allowed to happen and why. Okay. And all these shall come on an evil generation which transgresses on the earth. Their works are uncleanness and fornication and pollution and abominations. Then they shall say the days of the forefathers were many, unto 1,000 years, and were tove. But behold, the days of our life, if a man has lived many, are 60 years and 10, which is 70. And if he is strong, fourscore years or 80. And that's in the Psalms as well. And those evil, and there is no shalom in the days of this evil generation. And in that generation the sons shall convict their fathers and their elders of sin and unrighteousness, which they'll say that our fathers only inherited lies, vanity, in which there is no profit, right? And of the words of their mouth and the great wickednesses which they perpetrate. And concerning their forsaking the covenant which Yahuwah made between them and him, that they should observe and do all his commandments and his ordinances and all his instruction, without departing either to the right hand or the left. For all have done evil, and every mouth speaks iniquity. Remember, Abraham was found trustworthy because he spoke peaceably and didn't complain, even in all his trials, right? But here it says, every mouth speaks iniquity, and all their works are an uncleanness and an abomination, and all their ways are pollution, uncleanness, and destruction, or Abaddon. Behold, the earth shall be destroyed on account of all their works, and there shall be no seed of the vine, and no oil, for their works are altogether untrustworthy, and they shall all perish together, beasts and cattle and birds, and all the fish of the sea, on account of the children of men. And these things have happened throughout history with all these plagues and disasters that have come about because of our evils. Okay? Even the red tides and things like that that kill off life. And they shall strive one with another, the young with the old, and the old with the young, and the poor with the rich, and the lowly with the great, and the beggar with the prince, on account of the Torah and the covenant, for they have forgotten commandment and covenant, and feasts, and months, and Sabbaths, or Shabbats, and Yobelim, and all judgments. And they shall stand swords and war to turn them back into the way, but they shall not return until much blood has been shed on the earth, one by another. This is the history from when he came the first time to when he returns, right? All that's been going on. And those who have escaped shall not return from their wickedness to the way of righteousness, but they shall all exalt themselves to deceit and wealth, that they may each take all that is his neighbor's, and they shall name the great name of Yahuwah, but not in truth, and not in righteousness. And they shall defile the Kodesh of the Hakodeshim, or the most set apart, with all their uncleanness and the corruption of their pollution. And a great punishment shall befall the deeds of this generation from Yahuwah, and he will give them over to the sword, and to judgment, and to captivity, and to be plundered and devoured, which is why you see with the three heads of that eagle at this time, where the one head devours the other, literally what we're living through with the fall of America, militarily, to the militant arm of the church militant, right, with Rome, who is the fourth beast. Uh, It's ruining the institutions of our country as we speak and taking us out because we've been used as a puppet to subdue the world, like Yahusuf was used by Pharaoh to subdue all the land to him. We've been used to subdue all those that would not turn to the word, back over to the control of Rome. These things are demonstrably shown in history. I mean, I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings, but these are the truths that he wants us to know so that we can turn from it. Because we're living in the generation after the return from the Babylonian captivity of the Dark Ages, after the Reformation, that is now backslidden again, right? That's the condition we find ourselves in, just like the after the Babylonian period, you have the backsliding, and then what happened? The Antiochus Epiphanes and the Maccabean period. So this is what we can look forward to if we don't repent as a people, because he's not a hypocrite. He's absolutely righteous in everything, and he's not going to treat us differently if we do the same things that others did. Worse still when we should know better. He says, "And a great punishment shall befall the deeds of this generation from Yahuwah, and he will give them over to the sword, and to judgment, and to captivity, and to be plundered and devoured. And he will wake up against them the sinners of the nations, who have neither mercy nor compassion, and who shall respect the person of none, neither old nor young, nor anyone, for they are more wicked and strong to do evil than all the children of men." And this very comparison, showing no mercy, not having respect for any, is what is spoken of for the Kittim and what they were doing. And the Kittim was or is Rome in foretelling. So here's another witness to that. I'll have to find out where it mentions it, but it's almost quoting it word for word here. Very similar. "And they shall use violence against Yisrael, and transgression against Jacob, and much blood shall be shed upon the earth, and there shall be none to gather, and none to bury. And in those days they shall cry aloud, and call and pray, that they may be delivered from the hand of the sinners, the Gentiles, but none shall be saved." And this is what happened when he came and they rejected him, and then they got their enemies instead. They cried for help and they were absolutely destroyed. No, you have to read the Wars of the Yahudim. This is something that's removed from Scripture, but it tells you exactly what happened to those who rejected the truth after he came, and what Rome did to Yerushalayim in the siege. That kind of thing is a phenomenon that you see in a larger scale. It's been picking up steam lately. Now, this is kind of the reverse for that. We're getting these tribulations and oppressions so long as we are in rebellion, and it's once we turn from that that he's going to return, because he said that he's not coming in enmity. Those that are of him will be like him when he and changed with him when he comes, but we have to get to that point. If he returned now, those that are not worthy of it would be burned up at his coming, just like everyone else that's wicked. So this is a significant thing that you can look into. These phenomenon are things that are literally happening today in our life. They literally are, strange as it may seem, they are literally true, where you can see children growing old very quickly. But it's trying to point out the conditions of where we are and then what is soon to come, Father willing. It says, "In those days they shall cry aloud, but there shall be none to deliver," right? "And the heads of the children shall be white with gray hair, and a child of 3 weeks shall appear like an old man of 100 years, and their stature shall be destroyed by tribulation and oppression. And in those days the children shall begin to study the laws, and to seek the commandments, and to return to the path of righteousness. And the days shall begin to grow many, and increase amongst those children of men, till their days draw nigh to 1,000 years, and to a greater number of years than was the number of the days," meaning longer than a day, over 1,000 years. And this will be during the millennial reign, where you have men that are still mortal, that can still die, living longer and longer. And that's when the young child of 100 will be greatly mourned if they pass, but someone, a sinner of 100, would be lightly honored or lightly esteemed. It says, and there shall be no old man, nor one who is satisfied with his days, for all shall be as children and youths, and all their days they shall complete and live in shalom and in joy, and there shall be no Satan, nor any evil destroyer. For all their days shall be days of barakah and healing. And at that time Yahuwah will heal his servants, and they shall rise up and see great shalom, and drive out their adversaries. And the righteous shall see and be thankful, and rejoice with joy forever and ever, and shall see all their judgments and all their curses on their enemies. And their bones shall rest in the earth, and their inner beings shall have much joy. And they shall know that it is Yahuwah who executes judgment and shows mercy to hundreds and thousands, or to Alphim, and to all that love him. And do you, Moshe, write down these words, for thus are they written, and they are recorded on the Shamayim tablets for a testimony for the generations forever. All right, and then when we'll probably continue this next week, we'll move on from the times of Abraham and the parables foreshadowing the sojourns of the children before they go into the land with the promised seed and covenant. And we will be reading with what accounts he has now with Yitzhak there. So thank you all for your time. You have a wonderful rest of your Shabbat today and a Shavua Tov, great week ahead. And we will speak to you next time.